One shove, that's all it took to expose the truth about an entire school, when a wheelchair crashed onto concrete and hundreds of students just watched. Nobody thought anything would change. They were wrong, because 30 minutes later, a girl with fire in her eyes and justice in her heart decided that silence wasn't an option anymore. What happened next would shake Riverside Middle School to its core and prove that sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truth. This is a story about the moment when standing by became standing up. The morning fog rolled thick across Austin that Thursday, wrapping Riverside Middle School in a grey blanket that made everything feel muffled and distant. Yellow buses lined up like sleeping giants, their engines rumbling as students poured through the gates, backpacks bouncing, voices echoing off brick walls. Elena Rivera sat quietly in her wheelchair near the entrance, watching the morning chaos unfold around her. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat ponytail, and her green eyes held that particular kind of calm that comes from years of learning to be invisible. She wore a simple grey hoodie and jeans, nothing flashy, nothing that would draw attention. At 13, Elena had mastered the art of existing in the spaces between people's notice. She waited patiently as clusters of students rushed past, their conversations washing over her like waves. When a gap finally appeared in the crowd, she began wheeling herself toward the ramp that led to the main building. The concrete was cracked in places, and her wheels caught on the uneven surface, forcing her to navigate carefully. A soccer ball came bouncing toward her, breaking free from a group of boys playing near the fence. Elena reached down, grabbed it, and tossed it back with a smile. One boy shouted thanks before turning away, already back in his game. Nobody else acknowledged her. She was used to it. At Riverside, wheelchairs were just part of the furniture, noticed only when they got in the way. Across the courtyard, Derek Walsh climbed out of a truck plastered with football team stickers. He was everything Elena wasn't. Loud, confident, impossible to ignore, captain of the football team, with shoulders that seemed too broad for his age and a grin that made teachers nervous. His friends, Tyler and Josh, flanked him like satellites orbiting a planet. Derek's eyes swept the courtyard with the casual arrogance of someone who owned the space. When his gaze landed on Elena struggling with the ramp, something flickered across his face. Not quite cruelty, not quite amusement, something in between. "Hey, look," Tyler nudged him. "Riverside's little speed racer having trouble?" Josh laughed, already pulling out his phone. This could be good content. Elena heard them. Her hands tightened on the wheels, but she kept pushing, kept her eyes forward. Just make it to class. Just get through another day. Derek walked over, his footsteps loud on the concrete. "Need some help there, Elena?" The way he said it made her stomach tighten. There was no warmth in his voice, just that edge of mockery she'd learned to recognize. "I'm fine," she said quietly, not looking up. "You sure? Because it looks like you're stuck." Derek reached down and grabbed the handlebar of her wheelchair. "Let me give you a push." "Please don't," Eleanor started, but it was too late. Derek tilted the chair backward just slightly, just enough. Eleanor felt her balance shift, her hands grasping for something solid. For a moment that stretched like taffy, she teetered on two wheels. Then Derek gave another gentle push, and physics did the rest. The wheelchair tipped. Elena fell hard onto the concrete, her backpack flying open, notebooks scattering like white birds across the ground. The sound of her body hitting the pavement cut through the morning noise like a knife. Silence dropped over the courtyard like a curtain. Then came the laughter. First Tyler, then Josh, then ripples spreading through the crowd of watching students. Derek stood there, hands in his pockets, that same smirk on his face. "Oops," he said. "My bad. Guess I don't know my own strength." Elena lay on the cold concrete, staring up at the pale Texas sky, trying to breathe past the shock and humiliation. Around her, dozens of students stood frozen. Some covered their mouths, some looked away. Nobody moved to help. From across the lot, bus number 7 had just finished unloading. Zara Mitchell stepped off last, adjusting her backpack, her headphones hanging around her neck. She was new to Riverside, transferred in last year from another district. Tall for her age, with dark skin and hair braided in intricate rows, she had a presence that made people pay attention even when she wasn't trying. Zara looked up just in time to see Elena on the ground, Derek standing over her, the crowd of students doing nothing. Something inside her ignited. She dropped her backpack where she stood and started walking toward the scene, her stride purposeful, her jaw set. The morning sounds seemed to fade as she moved until all she could hear was her own heartbeat and the click of her shoes on pavement. "Hey!" Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The entire courtyard turned to look. Derek turned, eyebrows raised. "Oh, great! What do we have here?" Zara stopped a few feet from him, her eyes locked on his face. "You think that was funny?" Derek glanced at his friends, then back at her. "I think you should mind your business." "Humiliating someone who can't fight back is my business," Zara said, her voice steady as stone, "because unlike some people, I actually have a conscience." Tyler snorted. "Oh, snap. Derek's got a challenger." Josh was still recording. "This is gold." Zara ignored them. She walked past Derek and knelt beside Elena, her voice softening. "Are you hurt?" Elena shook her head, but her hands were shaking. "I'm okay." "Really?" "No, you're not." Zara helped Elena sit up, checking her arms for scrapes. Finding a small cut on Elena's elbow, she frowned. "We're getting you to the nurse." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do." Zara's tone left no room for argument. She gathered Elena's scattered belongings, stuffed them back in the backpack, then helped Elena back into the wheelchair with surprising gentleness. The courtyard remained silent, hundreds of eyes watching this unfold like a movie. Once Elena was settled, Zara stood and turned back to Derek. "If I ever see you do something like that again, we're going to have a problem." Derek's smirk faltered slightly. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." Zara's eyes didn't waver. "There are enough real problems in the world without people like you creating more." She turned and began pushing Elena toward the building entrance. Behind them, the crowd slowly began to disperse, whispers following in their wake. The hall monitor came rushing over. "What happened?" "Is everything okay?" Nobody answered. Derek shrugged and walked away with his friends as if nothing had occurred. But something had changed in the air at Riverside Middle School. Something small but irreversible, like a crack in a dam that would eventually bring the whole wall down. In the nurse's office, Eleanor sat on the examination table while the nurse cleaned the scrape on her elbow. Zara stood nearby, arms crossed, her jaw still tight with anger. "It's not deep," the nurse said gently, "but you might want to be more careful on that ramp." Eleanor said nothing. What could she say? That it wasn't the ramp's fault? That it never was? After the nurse left them alone for a moment, Zara spoke quietly. "How long has this been going on?" Elena looked at her hands. "Does it matter?" "Yes." "Why?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "Everyone else just looks the other way. Why do you care?" Zara pulled up a chair and sat down, meeting Elena's eyes. "Because someone cared about me once when I needed it. And because this isn't right, and pretending it is, makes us all part of the problem." Elena studied this girl she barely knew, this stranger who had stepped in when everyone else stayed frozen. "I'm Elena." "Zara." A small smile. "And I'm not going anywhere." That afternoon, Zara walked into the office of Coach Johnson, the physical education teacher. Coach Johnson was a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that students both feared and respected. "Coach, I need to talk to you about the challenge day next week." Coach Johnson looked up from her papers. "Go ahead." "I want to sign up as a team captain." Zara paused. and I want Derek Walsh on my team." The coach's eyebrows rose. "You know what happened this morning?" "Yes, ma'am. That's exactly why." Coach Johnson studied her for a long moment. "You're sure about this?" "Derek isn't easy to work with." "I'm sure," Zara said, "because if we want things to change, we can't just punish people and walk away. We have to show them another way." The coach nodded slowly, a smile tugging at her lips. "All right, Mitchell. Let's see what you can do." That evening, as the sun set over Austin, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Zara and Elena sat in the school library. Around them, other students studied or whispered or scrolled through phones. "What if this doesn't work?" Elena asked quietly. "What if he just makes everything worse?" Zara looked at her new friend, this girl who had spent so long being invisible, being hurt, being ignored. "Then we try something else." "But Elena, you can't let fear decide what's possible. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong." "That's because you're measuring strength wrong." Zara leaned forward. "Strength isn't about who can push who down. It's about who gets back up. And you've been getting back up every single day." Elena's eyes shimmered with tears she refused to let fall. "I'm tired of getting back up alone." "Then it's a good thing you're not alone anymore." Outside, the sky darkened to purple, then black. Stars began to appear one by one over Riverside Middle School, witness to something small but significant taking root. Tomorrow would bring Challenge Day, and with it, a chance to prove that even in a place where cruelty had become casual, change was still possible. Friday arrived bright and warm, the kind of spring morning that made everything feel full of possibility. The athletic field behind Riverside had been transformed overnight with colorful flags, obstacle course equipment, and a sound system playing upbeat music. Students gathered in clusters, chattering excitedly about the upcoming Challenge Day activities. Challenge Day at Riverside was a tradition meant to build teamwork and school spirit through various competitions and exercises. But this year felt different. Word had spread about what happened to Elena, about Zara's intervention, about the fact that Derek Walsh and Zara Mitchell were on the same team. Elena sat in her wheelchair near the bleachers, watching the preparations with a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. Beside her sat Zara, calm and focused, studying the field like a general surveying a battlefield. "You really think this will work?" Elena asked. "I think it's worth trying," Zara replied. "At worst, we prove Derek can't change. At best, we prove he can. Either way, we learn something." Principal Martinez stood at the center of the field with a microphone. He was a stocky man with graying hair and a voice that commanded attention. "Welcome everyone to this year's Challenge Day. We have 6 teams competing in 5 events. The final event is something new this year called the Partnership Challenge." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nobody knew what the Partnership Challenge was. It hadn't been announced beforehand. Derek stood with Tyler and Josh, all wearing matching blue team shirts. He looked bored, hands in his pockets, occasionally glancing at Zara with an expression somewhere between annoyance and curiosity. "Team captains, come get your assignments," Principal Martinez called. Zara walked to the center field, her posture straight, her movements confident. When she reached the principal, he handed her a clipboard and said quietly, "I hope you know what you're doing, Mitchell." "So do I, sir." The first challenge was a relay race. Zara's team, which she'd named Phoenix, lined up at the starting line. Derek stood at the back of the line, clearly planning to do the minimum required. The whistle blew. The first runner took off, then the second, then the third. By the time it reached Derek, they were in 3rd place. He jogged the course lazily, barely trying, and they finished 4th. Zara didn't yell. She just looked at him and said, "You're better than that." Derek scoffed. "Why would I try harder?" "Because your teammates are counting on you. Because effort matters. Because right now you're proving everyone right who thinks you're just a bully with nothing else to offer." Something flickered in Derek's eyes, anger maybe, or something else. The second challenge involved throwing beanbags at targets. Tyler went first and missed. Josh went second and hit the outer ring. Derek's turn came, and he stood there, bag in hand, jaw clenched. Then he threw. Bullseye. The crowd cheered. Zara nodded. See? That's what I'm talking about. By the third challenge, a balance beam course, Derek was actually trying. He helped Tyler across a difficult section, encouraged Josh when he stumbled. Team Phoenix climbed to second place, but everyone knew the real test was still coming. Principal Martinez's voice boomed over the speakers. And now, for our final challenge, the Partnership Challenge. Each team will select 2 members, one to sit in a wheelchair and hold a baton, and one to push them through the obstacle course. The field went silent. Every eye turned toward Elena. Zara stood and walked to the center. Elena Rivera will be our rider. She turned to Derek, and Derek Walsh will be her partner. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tyler's mouth fell open. Josh actually dropped his water bottle. Derek stood frozen. You can't be serious. Completely serious, Zara said, unless you're too scared. It was a challenge, and Derek knew it. Everyone knew it. Backing down now would be worse than anything else he could do. Elena wheeled forward, her face pale but determined. Let's just do this. They assembled at the starting line. Eleanor sat in her own wheelchair, baton in hand. Derek stood behind her, his large hands gripping the handles. Up close, she could feel him trembling slightly. I'm sorry, he said suddenly, so quiet only she could hear. Elena turned to look at him. Then prove it. The whistle blew. Derek pushed. The wheelchair shot forward, wheels spinning over grass and dirt. The first obstacle was a sandy patch that made the wheels stick. Elena leaned forward, using her weight to help. Derek adjusted his angle, and they powered through. Left, Elena called. Bump ahead. He listened, steering carefully. They hit the small hill, and Derek pushed harder, muscles straining. At the top, Elena lifted the baton high, catching the sunlight. The crowd was roaring now, chanting both their names. Elena! Derek! Elena! Derek! The balance bridge was next, narrow wooden planks that made the wheelchair wobble dangerously. Elena gripped the armrests. Derek slowed down, finding the rhythm, his breathing synchronized with her movements. You're doing good, Elena said. So are you, Derek replied. They crossed the bridge. One obstacle left, a series of tight zigzags between cones. Derek's hands were slick with sweat. Elena's knuckles were white around the baton, but they moved together, left then right, sharp turns and careful adjustments, until finally, gloriously, they crossed the finish line. First place. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the bleachers erupted. Students jumped to their feet, screaming, clapping, some crying. Coach Johnson wiped her eyes. Principal Martinez stood with his arms crossed, nodding slowly. Derek stood behind the wheelchair, chest heaving, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. Elena sat holding the baton, her face flushed, eyes bright with something that looked like joy. Zara walked over and put a hand on each of their shoulders. You both just taught this school something they'll never forget. That afternoon, in the school assembly hall, Principal Martinez announced a new initiative. The Circle, a student-led forum where anyone could share their experiences and work toward making Riverside a better place. He asked Zara and Elena to lead it. Standing on that stage, microphone in hand, Elena spoke words she'd been holding inside for years. I don't need anyone to feel sorry for me. I need people to see me, really see me. Not as a wheelchair, not as a problem, but as a person who belongs here just like everyone else. The applause was thunderous. Zara added, change doesn't happen because one person does something dramatic. It happens because ordinary people decide they're not okay with things staying the same. Today, Derek chose to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Tomorrow, who else will make that choice? In the front row, Derek sat with his head down, but when the assembly ended and students filed out, he stayed behind. He walked up to the stage where Elena and Zara were gathering their things. "I want to help," he said, "with the circle. If you'll let me." Zara and Elena exchanged glances. Then Elena smiled. Everyone gets a chance to change. That's kind of the whole point. The following Monday, 23 students showed up to the first meeting of the circle. They sat in a ring of chairs in the gym, afternoon light streaming through the windows, and one by one, they began to speak truths they'd been carrying alone. By the end of the school year, Riverside Middle School had changed. Not completely, not magically, but genuinely. A new plaque hung in the main hallway, words chosen by the students. Respect isn't given. It's shown. On the last day of class, Zara, Eleanor, and Derek sat on the back steps of the school, watching younger students play in the courtyard. The Texas sun was warm on their faces. "You know what's weird?" Elena said. "I used to dream about being invisible. Now I kind of like being seen." "You were always worth seeing," Zara replied. "Some people just needed their eyes opened." Derek nodded slowly. "I'm still figuring out how to be someone different. It's harder than I thought." "Good," Zara said. "If it was easy, it wouldn't mean anything." They sat in comfortable silence as the afternoon stretched toward evening. Three unlikely friends who had proven that sometimes the smallest act of courage, standing up when everyone else stands still, can change everything. The story of Riverside Middle School spread. Other schools heard about the circle, about Challenge Day, about the girl in the wheelchair, and the bully who learned to push her toward victory instead of defeat. But the real story wasn't about any one moment. It was about every single day after, when students chose to speak instead of staying silent, to help instead of walking away, to see each other as human beings worthy of respect and dignity. Because that's what justice looks like in the end, not a thunderbolt from above, but a quiet revolution of ordinary people deciding they're not okay with the way things are and having the courage to imagine something better. And sometimes that revolution starts with nothing more than one person saying, "Hey, that's not okay," and another person deciding to listen.